Here's why 90+% of developers are wasting time with AI coding assistants. Whether you're using Cursor AI, Windsurf, or VS Code, the problem is that the AI doesn't really know all of the details, requirements, best practices your team agreed on, your file structure, tech stack, and so on. This leads to incorrect code suggestions, not following the structure and the style of your project. In this video, I show you a neat solution that reduces errors and hallucinations by 90+% while saving you a lot of time on prompting. Welcome to Made by Agents. My name is Tobias Wupperfeld. I'm a software engineer, IT consultant, and your guide to AI mastery. Join me here on this channel where AI technology meets practical implementation. Now, to be honest, if you're a developer and you're not using any of these AI tools yet, you are already behind. But the current LLMs, they come still with some errors and hallucinations and training data cutoff. The common frustrations are manual corrections and constantly re-explaining your project in every prompt, which is really tedious.
Computer, Commander Montgomery Scott, Chief Engineering Officer. Destruct Sequence 2, Code 1, 1A, 2B.
I wanted to have a solution where I can write easy, stupid prompts and get good results every time. What if you could give your AI the perfect context every time? The secret sauce is documentation. And I want to show you 3 ways to add proper documentation to your coding IDE. We are now in Cursor and it has already a built-in way to attach documentation by using the add key. So if we type add and then docs, for example, we can search for public documentation. Let's say we want to attach the OpenAI documentation to our context. Same way we could add, for example, beautiful soup, and so on. If we don't find the documentation we are looking for here, we can still add it if there's a public website, and in this way we can add the link. Let's say we want the documentation of AgentQL, then we see we can add a new doc, and here we would need to add the link to the documentation, and then it scrapes the documentation and integrates it here in Cursor, adds this as context. There are other cool tools like, for example, typing web. This way it will use the web search tool. We can type our prompt and it's searching the web if necessary. Another tool is Codebase. This way it will include all of your files if you want, and makes sense if you're not starting from scratch and you already have some code in place. But these tools are just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to go way deeper. The key really is to create your own project documentation. Ideally before you start your project, but it can also always be added later on. A feature that Cursor provides, but it's also available in Windsurf and VS Code, is to specify a rules file. There you can define your coding style more or less. For example, naming conventions, how you want to work with certain frameworks, and so on. So in order to create this in Cursor, you press Command, Shift, and P. And then here you see the option New Cursor Rule. So we enter that, and then we can add a name for our cursor rule. So let's say we want to create one file for our backend and one file for our front end. So here we say now we want the front end rules. You press enter. Now we got this file here. First of all, we can give it a description if we want. So the description of the task this rule is helpful for. And here we can define when to apply the rules. So let's say we want to apply them for all the TypeScript files within our frontend folder. Then we could say here, for example, frontend, and then /*/* dot, then curly braces tsx. So that means that the rule is applied for all files within the frontend folder and subfolders that have the file ending TS or TSX. We define our rules here. There's a cool website where you can get some inspiration for these cursor rules, and it is called cursor.directory. And here we can search for some examples. So let's say for our front end, we want to use Next.js, and then we can just browse through some of these examples and copy it and then edit, modify it to our liking. Let's copy this and go back to Cursor, and we paste it here. And then, yeah, obviously we would make some adjustments to our code style. Now these rules are applied every time we make changes to our front-end TypeScript files. Yeah, we don't need to add them manually anymore. Yeah, and we can add several of these rule files, for example, also one for our backend folder. And this way we will already get much cleaner and more relevant code from the AI. Now, let me show you the second way to add documentation to your project, which goes beyond the rule files. And in this case, we are creating a new folder and we are calling it documentation. And inside of this folder, we will add a bunch of markdown files. So let's start with a README file. Let's close this. Yeah, and let's paste this boy here. I already did that before, so I will walk you through this. The purpose of this file is to provide kind of an overview of the entire project documentation that we will create now in a minute. It's kind of an index file referencing all these other documents. So here, for example, you see what we want to do now. We want to create a software requirements document, a document about the technical stack, a document about the system architecture, the front-end guidelines, the backend structure, file structure, app flow, development setup, deployment guide, testing strategy, API documentation, system prompts, and data processing. So these are some of my examples. You don't need to use all of them from the beginning. You can add more and more while you are working on your project. For example, the testing strategy, maybe not required right from the beginning. Yeah, I hope you get the idea. So what we're doing now is we are just creating more markdown files, the ones that we referenced here.
One eternity later.
Now that we've created all the files, let me give you an example of the software requirement documentation, just to give you an idea how you could, simply create this if you don't have this already. And for that, we are opening the chat window here in Cursor, but you could also do this in the ChatGPT interface or any other LLM interface. But I just like to use everything in one interface. So yeah, let's pick the LLM that we want to use. So in this case, I would like to use the O3 Mini because it has apparently a really high output token limit of 100,000 tokens, which is much more than Claude, for example, which has, I think, only 8,000 tokens and so on. So we don't need to care about chunking, or because the documentation might be relatively long. If you don't see O3 Mini here, for example, or DeepSeek, you can simply activate this in the Cursor settings. So you go to Cursor settings, and then let me close this again. You go to the models tab, and here you can activate or deactivate the models that you want to use in Cursor. Let's paste the prompt here. I've prepared something already. I will walk you through it now. So let's say the following. Act as a senior software architect specialized in technical writing. Your task is to craft documentation for a software project. Follow a technical writing style. Present the output as Markdown. The attached README provides an overview of the planned documentation files. Help me write the first file, the software requirements document as RD. So now what we can do here is we can just simply attach the README that we've created already. Otherwise, you can just paste the content of it here, inside of the prompt. Each documentation file should follow a consistent structure. We want an overview, purpose, detailed content, related documents, references, a change log for tracking major updates, and then please also add visual elements where it makes sense as mermaid diagrams. This is just an example. I will show you this in a minute. And then we add information about the project. So here we can go like really, really into details, but to save us some time, I just typed down some user stories, like very high level stuff. So just to give you an idea. So let's say we want to build an AI meeting summarizer. We want to use Next.js for the front end, Fast API for the back end, the Whisper API, and GPT for our product vision is here, and some of the user stories. So what the user is able to do, upload audio recordings. Also, we have a team admin which should be able to do these things. So that's about it. You should add much more information, but that's it for now. And then we hit enter or submit. And let's wait a few seconds because this is a reasoning model. It will think about it now and then give us a response. Now O3 Mini finished, and we can copy this to our markdown file. Copy this here and then paste it. Flowchart. Let's paste this here. So if you don't know what these mermaid diagrams are, let's copy one of these and let's head over to mermaidchart.com. And here we can simply paste them, and then we see that it generates a diagram for us. Or kind of a flow chart. So it's a pretty cool tool to programmatically create flow charts. And the AI will be able to understand this and help us write cleaner code. So here we have our first documentation now, and we can open the preview and obviously make some edits and changes to it. But it's a nice time saver, definitely, to go it and do it this way. The magic trick now is, if we are coding, to add this entire documentation as context. So we can simply say add and then type the name of the folder, and that's about it. And then we can prompt something like help me build the user authentication, and it will reference and it will read our entire documentation, and we will get a much, much better output. Last but not least, there's a third way to add context to Cursor, and this is by using these notepads here. When you click on this tab, you can create a new notepad, and it's very similar to a markdown file, but the advantage or the difference is that you can reference other files here. For example, you can type something, blah, 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 and then you can add one of your existing files. Let's say the app flow, and we can say reference this file and so on. If we go now into our chat window, we can simply add this notepad, which we called a new notepad, and then we can also use this as context. A disadvantage I see with these notepads currently is that you can't add it to Git. If you're working on a project with a team, for example, you can't really push it to GitHub right away, while the documentation here, you can easily push this to GitHub, and then you can collaborate on this with your entire team. That's about it. You can add as much documentation as you want, for example, also for specific parts of your application. Keep it simple, easy to maintain, then you will get a 90% better output from any of these models here. All right, I'm gonna attach a Google Doc file below in the description with all of the prompts and the documentation files and the stuff that I'm currently using. I hope you enjoyed this content. See you in the next one.